Hey all, Cryptic here, welcome back to another video. Today's video will be in regards to the new PlayStation 5 firmware update, the beta update that will be bringing along a much needed feature that's been promised since the announcement of the PlayStation 5, but we've been waiting, 8-9 months for it to arrive. That is the internal SSD storage expansion. As you know, the PlayStation 5 has an M.2 Gen 4 slot available, but that's been disabled via the firmware since launch. And now with the beta rolling out to all those rolled into the beta, you are now able to purchase a compatible M.2 SSD and expand your storage all the way up to an additional 4 terabytes. With today's video, we're going to go through the exact requirements for the compatible drives that you would need if you want to expand your storage. I have noticed a few articles and a whole bunch of YouTube videos that have sort of spread misinformation on what is compatible, what isn't needed. And I'm hoping with this video to give you just a foolproof guide of what is the exact guidelines now, what are the brands and drives that are compatible, and rough prices on what they'll be. And that way you can make an informed decision when your time is right for you to expand your storage. Without further ado, let's get into it. So we're going to get into the specifications of these M.2 NVMe SSDs that Sony has outlined that they need to meet in order for them to be compatible. We'll then follow up with the brands that are confirmed to be compatible as well. So the requirements are obviously the interface, PCIe Gen 4, M.2 NVMe SSDs. Reason for Gen 4 is for the minimum speed requirements to meet and or exceed the internal speed requirements of the PS5 SSD, which is rated at 5.5 gigabytes a second. Gen 3 wasn't able to achieve that successfully, so that's why we've had to wait until there were compatible Gen 4 SSDs. The capacities that are supported for the SSDs range all the way from 250 gigabytes up to 500 gigabytes, 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, and the highest being 4 terabytes. Again, this is sequential read speeds, 5.5 gigabytes or faster. A lot of these drives will reach up to 7 gigabytes a second. Whether that's actually utilized by any future games on the PS5, not sure, but they do definitely meet the minimum 5.5 gigabytes which is needed, which is fantastic. The form factor, now these numbers I'm going to read out relate to the length and height of the NVMe SSDs. Now remember, this also includes that they must have a heatsink on them. Non-heatsink SSDs are not supported. They'll generate too much heat, therefore they will not work properly on the PS5 if at all. So the form factors for the M.2 NVMe SSDs are the 2230s, the 2242s, the 2260s, the 2280s, and or the 22110s. Socket type is socket 3, and the total millimeter sizes, length being 110 mil, width being 25 mil, and height being 11.25 mil. Now with the height, there is a caveat. There is a confirmed brand, which I'll get to next, which has a height of 11.40 and is compatible and confirmed to be compatible, which I'll get to in a moment once we get to the brands that have confirmed, and I'll throw up a picture of it sitting in the slot of the PS5 showing just how tight of a fit it is. But there is an advantage to going with that one other than it being compatible, which we'll talk about in a second here. Now, with the brands that have 100% confirmation, there are two. The first one here being the cheapest, which is the one that just fits with the height of 11.40 as opposed to a recommended height of 11.25 mil, is Gigabyte's Aorus Gen 4 7000 series. These come in 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte capacities, ranging from $299 for the 1 terabyte up to $599 or $569 depending whether you get it from M-Wave or Amazon for the 2 terabyte capacity. Picture up on screen now, that's it there. It is a snug fit, but it fits perfectly, and for the price and capacity It is the best capacity to dollar or performance to dollar out of anything on the market at the moment, which is fantastic because one, it meets the requirements. Two, you'll obviously be saving some money. Three, yeah, this is probably going to be the one that sells the most out of anything until I guess something else cheaper comes along that's also reliable. In saying that, WD also have NVMe Gen 4 SSDs that are also confirmed to be compatible. They are dearer though, so they range in one extra size compared to the Gigabyte Aorus, but to be honest, I don't see anyone getting the smaller size here, starting with the 500 gigabyte. M-Wave are selling them for $215. On Amazon, it's $238. Surprising, Amazon's actually dearer compared to M-Wave for the WD Blacks, but here they are nonetheless. There's a 1 terabyte model, so the WD Black SN850 with heatsink, 1 terabyte, $366 on M-Wave, $528 on Amazon. The 2 terabyte model is $766 on M-Wave and $807 on Amazon, which is ridiculous. In saying that the Gigabyte Aorus 7000s, they will hit the 7 gigabytes a second speeds, which is why I would be leaning more towards going with those as opposed to the WD Blacks. They're cheaper, they have the heatsink on there, and they're available. If you want to jump the gun now and get one in preparation for the update, you can. I would say the smartest thing is to wait, because as time progresses, and if you don't really need one at the moment, if you're doing just a lot of first-party titles, a couple PlayStation Plus games, you're not doing too much PS4 games, etc., etc., you may not be using all of the storage space on your PlayStation 5, so you may not need one immediately. So waiting, these will get cheaper. They're not proprietary, they're third party. As other models come out, as newer versions come out, these ones get cheaper, sales happen, etc. Which is a benefit compared to, although it's a bit more difficult because you have to make sure you're getting the correct compatible third party drive, as opposed to Sony just saying, here, we've partnered up with a manufacturer, here's an SSD that just works. Not saying that Sony won't, they may still manufacture with someone where they do the official PS5 or PlayStation approved stamped SSD, M.2 SSD that'll work, and it might be around the same ballpark price as this, maybe a little bit dearer because it's approved and authorized. But these will get cheaper and there will be sales on them, so you'll be able to save money in the long run. Where Microsoft went for the route of the proprietary SSDs, which, yes, they tend to stay the same price for way longer. They don't tend to go on discount as often, if ever, but they are sort of foolproof. You buy them, you know they're going to work. But if you think about it, Sony has always been on the path of using third-party hard drives or expansion, sort of, I guess, since the PlayStation 2 getting the hard drive expansion that you could do, the PlayStation 3, the PlayStation 4 having the hard drive, and of course now the PlayStation 5, instead of just outright swapping out the storage, you're not expanding the storage, but still going third party, which in my honest opinion, I've preferred, but that's because I do build PCs. I do enjoy doing that sort of thing where you get to open up something, install your own custom hardware, doing firmware updates off the USB, etc., etc. It's a thing that I prefer, but I can totally respect those who don't and they prefer just getting something, plugging it in, and it just works, which is fine. Now with that, there is one coming up by Seagate, the Fircuda 530 series with the heatsink. These are probably the most expensive on the market. They're expected to be out in early August. They go from 500 gigabytes at $239 Australian, 1 terabyte at $399 Australian, 2 terabytes $819 Australian, and the 4 terabyte is a whopping $1,499 Australian. That's the price of 2 PS5s here. That's insane. Again, if you do want 4 terabytes of storage, at the moment, that is your only way. The Fircuda is in August. If you're wanting to spend $1,500 on that, go for it. I think ideally what's going to be the most popular are the 1 terabyte and the 2 terabyte capacities. I don't see the 500 gig selling that often unless someone's really desperate and really on a tight budget, but I'd say if you're wanting to expand the storage, you're just going to probably save up for at least the 1 terabyte, and then you're going to be like, all right, sweet, I'm set. I can now have Call of Duty, Ghost of Tsushima, everything else that I want to play, all installed without having to uninstall anything for a little bit. But yeah, that if you wanted 4 terabytes though, that would be your only option. Now remember, the heatsink is a must. There are people saying, hey, just get the Samsungs. The Samsungs aren't confirmed to be compatible yet. You can get a $20 to $25 heatsink separately and attach it to either one side or both sides of the SSD. Usually you need on wherever the memory module chips are located on the PCB of the SSD, and that's where you need to put the heatsinks because that's what's generating the heat, are those modules. Especially the higher the capacity, the hotter they do get, so you need that heat dissipation of the heatsink. The 980s from Samsung, the Samsung 980 Pro, you need to buy the heatsink separate. They're more on the price range of the WD blacks, sort of between the WD blacks and the Gigabytes, but once you add in the heatsink, then pretty much the WD blacks at that point. Depending whether you need one or two, depending on how the modules are placed on the SSD, I'd say it's not worth it unless you already have one of these lying around that you were going to use on a laptop storage upgrade or a desktop storage upgrade, and you have a spare one and you just prefer just to spend an extra $20 to $25 on a heatsink, then by all means go for it. But I'd say wait until there's confirmation that they are compatible. At the moment they're not. The two main ones that are on the market now that are compatible again are the Gigabyte Aorus Gen 4 7000 series in 1TB and 2TB capacity, and the WD Black SN850s with the heatsink. Remember, there's two models, there's the one without and the one with. Get the one with if you're going with a WD Black, and they're available in the 500GB, the 1TB and the 2TB models. And the Seagates, they're expected to come out in August. They'll be the only way you'll get 4 terabytes of storage available, but again, 1,500 Australian dollars, pricey. Again, make sure you get the ones with the heatsink on that if you are going to be going with the 4 terabyte model. If you're going with anything less, I'd say Gigabyte Aorus all the way. They achieve the full speeds and best price to performance on the market at the moment, especially when it comes to the PlayStation 5. If you are a console gamer, is you prefer console gaming, that would be because the hardware is cheaper. You might have friends on there, etc., but mainly because the hardware is cheaper, so then you don't want to be spending the most money on expanding your storage. You want something reputable, reliable, and has what you need. Gigabyte is all of those. So is WD Black and so is Seagate, but I would say in my personal view, I'll probably be getting the 2 terabyte. Gigabyte just makes the most sense, best value for money, but I will probably be doing the same thing that I'm recommending here. Wait a little bit. They will go on special, prices will drop, but it depends. Hopefully these don't get scalped because they're going to realize people want to expand their storage, blah blah blah, people going nuts. But make sure you follow the requirements exactly. They have to be with the heatsink. I'm going to put links to the Gigabyte Aorus and the WD Blacks below. Those are the ones that are 100% confirmed. I'll also put the Seagate Fircudas 530 with heatsink as well if you want to get the 4 terabyte. If that's the way you want to go, you want the max storage possible, which is supported by the PlayStation 5. I'll have that linked. I have an article from Press Start Australia as well, which has a good text version of a lot of the stuff I've said here. And yeah, be careful what videos or articles you do read in regards to the compatible drives. There is a lot of misinformation and the wrong advice being given on what you should or shouldn't be going with. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. If you've done hard drive upgrades or memory upgrades on a PS4 before or a PS3, you're going to be fine with this. It's more or less the same thing, except you're not having to install firmware again, because you're not swapping out storage, you're expanding. So insert the drive, go through the menu prompts to format it correctly, and away you go. When the time comes and the firmware is out public for everyone, I will do a tutorial video on how to open up your PS5 to take off the side panel, access the M.2 Gen 4 slot, inserting the M.2 NVMe SSD in there, and going through the menu options to get it all formatted and set up. So that way, if you're unsure or you'd like a guide to follow through step by step to do the storage upgrade, I'll have one of those out in the not too distant future. Alright guys, any questions, comments, concerns at all, feel free to comment below. If you found this video helpful, please hit the thumbs up button, it does help out a lot. Throw a comment as well, and if you haven't, please subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. See ya.